The Virginia Tea Party presents from our 2025 Summer Summit, the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor, John Reid.
I've been back in Richmond for 8 years now. Some of you probably heard me on WRVA until January 27th of this year, when I kind of had to make a tough decision. Do I stay at the radio station and continue to rail against bad decisions in Richmond and in Washington, or do I leave the radio station, because you can't be a broadcast person on an FCC station, and jump into the race for lieutenant governor, hoping that I can bring some sense of responsibility and reasonable thought to the state capitol? And that's what I'm trying to do. I should mention, just in case there are any IRS agents here, I'm not speaking at this moment on behalf of the Virginia Council. It's a 501c3. And just for the record, we had former Governor Doug Wilder as our last speaker at the Virginia Forum. So we're trying to, and believe it or not, he's an ostracized voice too. The Democrats don't like him anymore. Is that crazy? The first black governor of Virginia, guy who went out and campaigned and revitalized his party, and now they don't want to hear from him because he's not radical enough. And that is what we're up against in the Commonwealth this year, is a radical group of extremists who are going to be very, very well funded and very, very hyper aggressive to try to take over the state. And it is the reason that right when we started January, Alonzo and I got back from a trip, and I was debating whether I should actually do this. I've been talking about it for a year. I went and talked to Winsome Sears privately. I went and talked to Jason Miyares privately. I went and talked to the governor privately, the Republican leaders of the House and Senate. I said, hey guys, I'm thinking about doing this, but out of respect for you, because I'm an old-fashioned Virginian, I felt like it was respectful as a non-politician to go talk to the politicians. Who am I just to show up and announce I'm going to run? So I went and gave them the heads up. I said, if there's a problem, I need you to let me know. Well, anybody can run, John, and here's the way you win. Here's the things that are law. Everybody was okay with it, right? And then New Year's, I'm thinking it would be crazy to give up this amazing job at the radio station. And then I got a text message that said, you're not going to believe what's happening at the state capitol. And I drove down, and there was a porta-toilet in front of the governor's mansion. And there was a collection of porta-johns behind the state capitol. And the legislature had to leave because there was no water to drink here in Richmond. The hospitals couldn't have surgery because there was no fresh water in the hospitals. The hotels were trucking in big trucks full of water so they could flush the toilets. No water in the state capital of Virginia, a major metropolitan area, first world city. And this is what happened in Richmond. And guess who was running the city of Richmond? Levar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond for 8 years, who is probably, I think it's a good bet that he will be the person challenging me for lieutenant governor as the Democrat. Everything that guy has touched when he was mayor was a disaster, whether it was the effort to close the Coliseum, which he forced, and he was going to build some magnificent new Coliseum, and he closed the old Coliseum to try to force everybody in Richmond that they had to support him, because look, now you don't even have a Coliseum. He's gone now. That Coliseum, I drove by 2 days ago, that Coliseum is ringed in fence with razor wire around it now because people were climbing over the fence. It is basically an outdoor urinal for the homeless right in downtown Richmond, next to the convention center where all the wonderful tourists who used to come to Richmond to see our historic sites, now they come, thank God they still come, they come for gymnastics meets at the convention center. That's what they see. And the story after story about bad management and bad judgment and bad decisions, not just by Levar Stoney, but by the Democrat Party writ large. In 2020, some of you were here. Did you hear Governor Ralph Northam stand up and talk about obeying the law and respecting other people? Did you hear him say, hey, I understand why you're upset about what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but this is Richmond, Virginia, and here we obey the law. You can come testify at the Capitol. You can have a peaceful rally at the Capitol, but you're not going to smash the windows of black-owned businesses while you scream about Black Lives Matter. Did you hear that from Ralph Northam? No, you did not. Did you hear that from Levar Stoney? No, you did not. Because they're not committed to law and order. They're not committed to a prosperous society for all the citizens. They're manipulating everybody here to try to achieve political victories. And I'm not going to sit quiet and allow it to continue to happen on my watch. And that is why I decided I had to leave the radio station and not insignificantly for me, leave my own paycheck. I stand before you as somebody who's spent 30 years trying not to be unemployed. I'm unemployed. But it's not because I'm going to go out and just drink all night, party all night. It's because I got to help save Virginia. That's why I got into this race. And I tell you, there were 2.5 of us running for this nomination in the Republican Party. One guy couldn't even get the 10,000 signatures to make the ballot. Okay, sorry about that. Life's tough. I don't know. I mean, it's like Organization 101 to try to be able to make the ballot with the 10,000 signatures. 2 of us did. The other gentleman from Fairfax had a heart problem, open heart surgery, had to drop out. So now you're stuck with me as the lieutenant governor nominee. I think I'm a pretty good choice. Nelson, I appreciate you pointing out that I was with you at the beginning and I've stayed with you. That's been my history with the conservative movement and the Republican Party. I'm 54 years old. I started volunteering on campaigns in the 80s. I was that kid who was at the polls at 6 a.m. in Henrico County at Carver Elementary School and worked from 6 to 7 p.m. handing out Republican sample ballots as a child. And then I stayed when I worked on the Wyatt Direct campaign, which was a failure, unfortunately. I didn't quit. When Marshall Coleman ran, I had to tell Doug Wilder. I supported Marshall Coleman. When Marshall Coleman didn't win, I stayed with the Republican Party. When my friends got tired of George W. Bush and all said, well, I can't be a Republican anymore, I stayed with the conservative movement and the Republican Party. When all of my gay friends decided they loved Barack Obama, I stayed with the Republican Party. I'm loyal not just to people, but to principles that I believe in and that I think you believe in too. That's why you're here on a Saturday. So I'm traveling the state pretty aggressively, knowing that you did not choose me affirmatively as your nominee. I made the choice to enter the race and I won. You know, a win is a win, however you get it. But I don't take that for granted. And I'm going to try to reach out over the next few months to every conservative voter in the state and every Republican voter in the state and every organization that overlaps with our vision of a peaceful, prosperous, successful Virginia and do my best to convince you that my past indicates that I'm on your side and that if I am your lieutenant governor, that I'm going to cast the right votes and that I'm going to advocate for the right things that you believe in. One of them being right to work. It's really important that we share that. We may lose some people on some of the social issues, but everybody knows what it's like to be looking for a job and hoping that they can find a job that will match their skill set and their interests, that they're not stuck in a never-ending cycle of working for somebody else, just waiting for Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock to come so maybe you get 2 days off to actually enjoy your life. In Virginia, because we have right to work, we've had Governor Jim Gilmore, Governor George Allen, Governor Bob McDonnell, and, to give him credit, Governor Glenn Youngkin, who have been able to go out and recruit new jobs and new businesses and say, invest that $100 million in the Commonwealth. And they've been willing to do it. I was the communications director at the United States Chamber of Commerce. And I traveled across the country, and I started to hear from big-time CEOs, Fortune 500 companies, to the little mom-and-pop startups, that this was really important, that they needed to have a stable workforce that wasn't going to immediately turn around and hustle them and demand more money where they'd go out of business. And Virginia was able to offer that. If we lose and you get an Abigail Spanberger instead of a Winsome Sears as governor, we're in trouble. If we don't regain control of the House of Delegates as Republicans, we're in trouble. And this July 1st, mark it on your calendar, is 1 year until the next set of new laws will go into effect in Virginia. We'll find out who the governor will be. We'll find out who the lieutenant governor is. We'll find out about the House of Delegates. And I'm telling you, put money on it. They're going to push through a repeal, and then on July 1st of 2026, you're not going to recognize Virginia. The giant sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about in 1992 with the free trade agreements, that's going to reveal itself in a different way here in Virginia. Because we are not going to win that competition against Tennessee, where, by the way, they don't have income tax. Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas. This is a competitive business that we're in. And if you and your kids and your grandkids want jobs, you better show up for this, and you better be bold enough to tell the people at your church and the people in your bridge club and the people at your golf club and the people at the PTA and the people down the street that you normally wouldn't talk politics with, that this is important. Because the Democrats are talking politics with their family and friends, and they know that it's on the line. They got 6 people running for lieutenant governor, 6 people who got the 10,000 signatures across the state, 6 people who went to each congressional district and got a minimum of 400 signatures, 6 people who are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for each one of the candidates. Next week, there's going to be a story about our fundraising. And I'm just telling you right now, my fundraising is going to be low. There's some people who are working behind the scenes to try to make sure that I don't get another dime. And I'm mad as hell about it. I'm not going to quit because I'm not going to give up on Virginia, but I need you not to quit too. And I am promising you also that even though I'm mad about the way I've been treated and the backstabbing that has occurred within the Republican Party, I'm an adult and I know what's on the line. I'm going to put that aside because this ticket has to win. And this party needs to be unified now, starting now. So wherever I go across the state, I want it to be very clear. I am endorsing the top of the ticket, Winsome Sears, for governor of Virginia. She needs to be there. We need to have a Republican governor who will veto the same 200 bad bills that Glenn Youngkin has vetoed to keep them from becoming bad laws. We didn't pick Winsome Sears because she's black. We picked Winsome Sears because she's owned a business. She was a Marine. She was in the House of Delegates. She's been a good lieutenant governor. She's fought when she needed to, and she's earned the right through merit to be our nominee for governor. I respect that. Doesn't mean we agree on everything, but I'll be voting for her. I'd say the same thing about Jason Miyares. We didn't pick him because he's Latino. We picked him because he was great in the House of Delegates. He fought for us. He's been a pretty good attorney general. Don't agree with everything. He used to come on my show. I'd throw him curveballs, try to throw him up, trip him up. He was too smart to fall for it. That says I got confidence in this guy as our lead attorney. We need Jason Miyares back as attorney general. And I hope that if you watch me closely over the next several months, you will feel confident about me as your nominee and hopefully as your next lieutenant governor. It's not just about right to work. It's not just about tax policy, although those of you who wrote big checks to pay for your car tax the other day, I hope you will keep that in mind as you decide what you're going to do going forward. If you're a senior citizen who's on a fixed income and you get that notice that says suddenly your house is valued $200,000 more than you thought it was, and the tax has been calculated according to that, and you're not sure you can afford it, maybe we need to send some conservative fiscal Republicans to the Capitol to try to recalibrate what we're doing with taxes in this state, because it's killing senior citizens in Virginia. And you know what? The Democrats who always talk about how much they care about minorities, and they always care about seniors, this is going to betray that that was a lie. And I'm the one who's going to go out and make sure that everybody knows it. We also have a culture war that's going on now, and that's been one of the points of consternation about my presence as the nominee. So let me address that directly to you. I'm not running to be the pastor of your church. I'm running to be the lieutenant governor of the state. And those are different roles. I respect both of them. In fact, I respect freedom and personal choices so much so that you're going to hear me say something that most politicians, which I'm desperately trying not to become, most politicians won't say this. You do not have to agree with me on everything to feel confident that I'm going to respect your rights. You don't hear that from many Republicans. And you sure as hell don't hear it from Democrats. They want you to bend the knee to every decision, culturally, socially, governmentally, that they propose. You must obey them. I don't believe that. So if you are a Bible-believing Christian pastor who, I'll just be honest with you, doesn't like gay marriage, doesn't believe in gay marriage, that hurts my feelings a little bit, but I'm an adult. And I believe in freedom, so I respect you. I respect you. You have every right to have the opinion that you have. And you have every right to associate with whoever you would like to associate. And you have every right to run your church as you see fit. You don't have to ask for my permission at all, as an individual or as a government official. You do not have to ask for my permission. And my job is to make sure that you can still do what you want to do. And I'm going to do what I want to do. And we're going to have to get along that way in a state with 8.5 million people who are very diverse. And you know, one of the big lies we have been told is that diversity is our strength. Baloney. It is not true. Diversity in and of itself is not a strength. Common values and common goals amongst diverse people, that's the strength in our society. And I hope that if you examine my history and who I am as a person, what I have been through as an individual, and the things that I have stood up and fought for as an adult, that you will feel confident that I am someone who is going to look for those common values and common goals in every room I walk into in the state of Virginia, and that I will represent you fairly and reasonably and with a sense of responsibility going forward.